Ryan Blaney versus Jimmy Johnson is a feud I never really expected, but I am loving every single second of. How's it going, everyone? My name is Eric, and welcome back to Out of the Groove. Hope your weekend's off to a good start. I really wasn't planning on doing an episode today. I'm in the middle of packing. I got a lot of traveling coming up. But then after some quotes yesterday, some remarks made to the media by a couple of NASCAR's highest profile drivers, I figured I needed to take some time and dedicate a video to this feud, this rivalry, this fight, almost we can call it. Not actually like a physical fight. They aren't throwing punches, but I wouldn't rule that out entirely. But anyway, I got some clips, I got some quotes from Jimmy Johnson and Ryan Blaney. This is going all the way back to last weekend at Watkins Glen when the two of them made contact late in the race. Blaney sent Johnson spinning, hurt Johnson's finish, and hurt him in the points. After the race, the two drivers were seen on pit road talking to each other. Jimmy seemed to be doing most of the talking and was very animated in his discussion. And then afterwards, Jimmy Johnson made some strong comments about Ryan Blaney to the media, telling everyone to stay tuned and that they were going to go racing. So hinting at possible retaliation in the near future. I thought that was it. I thought it was basically over, but Friday morning, when the drivers rolled into Michigan, media asked Ryan Blaney and Jimmy Johnson some questions about the incident, and the two drivers just continued to lay into each other. So, I don't know, let's discuss it. I'm going to play you guys some clips, give you guys my reactions to the clips kind of in real time, and then I'll give you guys my final concluding thoughts on this very entertaining feud. I'll start by showing Jimmy Johnson's side of the story. So here's a clip from Bob Pockrass, Fox Sports, with Jimmy Johnson answering some questions talking about the fallout from last week's incident.
I don't care how it looks or how it's perceived. I got dumped and I was upset. And the way I was raised and the way I went racing is when something like that happens, you go talk to the guy. I was taught not to use my car as a weapon, go out and try to crash the guy back. Also, I went there and talked to the guy and hoped to hear a different side of the story than what I thought took place in the car. So that's just the way I was raised in racing, the way I handled it.
And now here, fair to Johnson. He did go approach Ryan Blaney after the race the way you should. You shouldn't let things like that fizzle. You should confront them in the moment and get their side of the story right away. And Jimmy Johnson's usually been this kind of guy. He's not the kind of guy to go wreck people on purpose during the race. Very rarely does he do that. He typically likes to go talk to people. Remember a couple years ago when he approached Kevin Harvick in the motorhome lot and Harvick just walked out and gave him a little baby punch? Remember that? So Jimmy Johnson's not afraid to go talk to people. So I give him credit for at least approaching Blaney and confronting him right then and there and not letting things fizzle over to Twitter the way Kurt Busch and Ricky Stenhouse did a week ago, which was kind of cringy. So credit to Jimmy Johnson, but he had some more to say. Here's a clip from Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Credit to him. Here is some more remarks Jimmy had to say about Ryan Blaney.
Wrong, right, or indifferent, I've always made an effort to talk to the person. I have learned more about Ryan's point of view through reading articles than I have from out of his mouth, and that part bothers me. It's pretty sad. When I went to talk to him after the race, at some point he said he felt bad, but I never heard, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Nothing that would make me think that that he didn't care if it happened. So, that aspect only confirmed the way I felt in the car. So, I thought I would get a call from him during the week, just the friendship that we've had, the amount of respect that I thought we had for one another, and I didn't. So
this one's really important. Jimmy says he expected a call, and I don't know, this seems common for a lot of these older drivers. They expect to be reached out to whenever they have an issue with another driver on track. Now, I'm sure I'm not the only one who thought this was very similar in a lot of ways to the Matt Kenseth-Joey Logano high-profile rivalry from a few years ago. Part of the reason Matt Kenseth ultimately retaliated against Logano at Martinsville, other than Kansas, other than the shenanigans at Talladega, other than the earlier wreck at Martinsville, was because Matt Kenseth felt disrespected that Joey Logano did not call him or reach out to him to apologize for the initial incident. Logano did a lot of his talking through the media, and Kenseth did not like that. Now, Jimmy Johnson seems to be in Matt Kenseth's place in this specific incident. And Jimmy, Matt Kenseth, around the same age, similar generation, they grew up racing around the same time, so I can understand why they would think very similarly. And I wouldn't be shocked if Jimmy Johnson looks at this like, Ryan Blaney's another one of those young Penske drivers that thinks it's all about them. That might be what Jimmy's thinking here. I'm not saying Jimmy's going to go junk Blaney at Martinsville in a couple months, but just saying. Bristol is next week. I'm not going to say it. Jimmy's not going to retaliate. He's not going to junk Blaney. I don't think that's going to happen. He might bump him. Might give him a little bumping around, but Jimmy's not that guy. Although also I didn't think Matt Kenseth was that guy until 2015, so I don't know. Blaney maybe should watch out. I'm getting my own head here. One last clip here from Dustin Long, Jimmy Johnson, final remarks, and I think this says a lot about his overall issue with Blaney.
Really not, no form of apology when we were chatting. No follow-up, nothing after, so to me, it's pretty obvious. He meant to drive through me.
So Jimmy Johnson basically believes that Blaney intentionally wrecked him at Watkins Glen. And this is where Jimmy loses me a little bit, because why on earth would Ryan Blaney intentionally want to wreck Jimmy Johnson? They're not racing each other in the points. They weren't racing for the win in that race. That doesn't make any sense to me why Blaney would intentionally want to spin Jimmy Johnson out. I can't imagine that would be the case. We'll hear Blaney's side here in a second, but that's the part where Jimmy Johnson kind of loses me right there. Now, I should have mentioned this earlier, but that brief clip I showed earlier, that is really the only view NBC had of the incident. We never actually got to see exactly how it started. So was it Blaney's fault? Was it Johnson's fault? We still don't really know. It's kind of just, we gotta have to just base it on their words. It's tricky here, but let's go now to some of Ryan Blaney's comments. Now, this came also Friday morning at Michigan. His first clip, again, from Dustin Long, NBC. Ryan Blaney, this is actually really just the one big clip. It's just one long clip here. Ryan Blaney giving his whole side of this situation.
I saw he said that he expected a call, and we talked after the race. There was no need for a call. There's no need for me to apologize. I know he's expecting an apology. I said, sorry you got spun after the race, but something I can do about it. It come down across my nose. That's what's going to happen. And then I was pretty disappointed with what he said after the race, and then that pretty much confirmed that I wasn't going to check back in with him. But we talked after the race. And that's kind of my point of it.
About you after the race, TV.
Yeah, that actually really pissed me off. So I raced Jimmy with a lot of respect, and I stood there and let him chew my ass out for 2 minutes or whatever it was, and was very respectful and gave my side of the story. And then for him to say what he said after we got done talking, that pretty much solidified that, that respect has dwindled down a lot. And obviously that respect doesn't go both ways. It showed me he has no respect for me.
Now, there's a few things to digest from Blaney's rebuttal right there. One, Blaney partially, if not wholly, blames Jimmy Johnson for the actual wreck that got them mad at each other in the first place. He says Johnson came down on him. Might be true. Might not be true. Again, as far as I've seen so far, there's no video evidence that confirms one side or the other here. Two, Blaney's reason for not calling Jimmy Johnson is because he thought their post-race conversation was more than enough. And now I really do not blame Ryan Blaney for being upset about Jimmy Johnson's post-race comments he made to TV. I mean, Johnson went out there and basically called him a scared little kid with his lips quivering and everything. I mean, on national TV. I completely understand why Ryan Blaney would be frustrated by that. I sure as heck would not go out and apologize to somebody after they said something like that about me on national TV. I wouldn't. Who would? Now, there's another article from NASCAR.com that had a couple other quotes from these drivers that I think ultimately summarizes it perfectly. Firstly, from Johnson, he says, "We know what happened on the track. The drivers do. There's a window of opportunity there from my standpoint for Ryan to handle it a certain way, to engage in at least the way that I know I have when it wasn't on purpose, and I have yet to see or hear from him. So that only validates my line of thought and how angry I was in the car." So again, Johnson believes it was on purpose, and he thinks that the fact that Blaney didn't later reach out and text or call him confirms that. So Johnson just right now, he believes that Blaney intentionally wrecked him at Watkins Glen and didn't apologize for it, so that's why Johnson's mad. But here's Blaney's quote. "I have nothing to apologize about. He came down on me. I apologized to him right then and there, even though it was his fault. I have a lot of respect for Jimmy, or had a lot of respect. That's why I kind of let him chew my ass out for a minute and a half, or whatever he did, and I didn't go back into him, especially when he put a finger in my face. Then his comments after we got done talking pretty much threw all that out the window. That respect is very little." So from Blaney's side, he still believes that Johnson shares most of the blame for the actual wreck, and he feels like Johnson's post-race comments to Blaney himself and then to TV afterwards were more than enough and didn't warrant an apology from Blaney afterwards. In a nutshell, that's what both drivers think, and it all comes down to respect. Both drivers feel like they've been disrespected. Jimmy Johnson feels like he was disrespected on the track and also disrespected afterwards because he didn't get an apology. And then Blaney feels disrespected because he thought the wreck was Johnson's fault and he didn't like Jimmy making those comments about him to the national media. Ultimately, they both think the actual wreck was the other person's fault. And that anytime that happens, there's going to be conflict when the two sides don't see the same way. So in conclusion, in my opinion, there is one big reason why this whole altercation has been talked about so much the last few days. Bam! Right there. That is why this is such a big deal. That right there is why Jimmy Johnson is reacting to this whole situation the way he is. I try to go into every single one of these incidents completely objective and look at what happens and then pick a side. I'm more on Blaney's side in this whole thing. I think Jimmy Johnson is 100% in his own head. Not just this one incident. I think this one incident is bringing it out and making it more obvious for everyone to see, but this whole season, arguably the last year and a half, Jimmy Johnson has been in his own head more so than any other point in his career. Jimmy Johnson's always been under pressure. He's racing in America's top motorsport. Of course there's pressure involved, but for years, his entire career, he's always risen to the occasion. He's always achieved 7-time champion. We thought that was impossible in the mid-2000s. But while he's always been challenged, he's always faced pressures, for his entire career, he's been able to overcome all that and overachieve. up until the end of 2017. Jimmie Johnson, I must remind you all again, has not won a points-paying cup race in more than 2 full calendar years. And now we've seen this all season long, and even I'd say a little bit of last season. The pressure, and I think the disappointment, is finally getting to Jimmie Johnson and is causing him to act or perform differently than he ever has before. We've seen him, he's a little snarky on social media, posting things like this after Watkins Glen, or occasionally kind of lashing out at fans. Lashing out's a strong word, because what he's doing there is still very tame, but still interacting with fans, feeding the trolls, so to speak. Retirement talks of him not winning, crew chief turnover, whose fault is it? All that type of stuff is finally weighing on Jimmie Johnson the way it never has for, his whole 17, 18-year career. From the moment Johnson got into the Cup Series, win, win, win. 2006 champion, 2007 champion, 2008 champion, 2009 champion, 2010 champion. Jimmie didn't know what it was like to lose in NASCAR for years. Unfortunately now, all of that losing has kind of hit suddenly here in the last 2 years. And I think the weight of all this sudden pressure, all this sudden dip in performance, it's officially weighing on him. And I think it's causing him to lash out at other drivers now in ways that maybe in years past he wouldn't have done before. Jimmie Johnson has never missed the playoffs or the chase. He's the only driver in NASCAR history to qualify for the playoffs every single year since it's been around. But this year he's right there on that bubble, and one bad race, we have 4 races left, one bad race could ruin this whole season and could knock him out of the playoffs for the first time ever. And for a 7-time champion, you gotta believe Jimmie would see that as completely unacceptable. And given that he's right there on the bubble, every point matters. When he has a setback like he did at Watkins Glen, getting spun out there, he's gonna lash out. He's gonna be more angry than he usually would. Was the on-track incident Jimmie Johnson's fault? Probably not entirely. I'm sure Blaney had a little something to do with it. He could have lifted, maybe he overdrove it slightly. I'm sure the incident was at least somewhat Ryan Blaney's fault. But to say it was all Blaney's fault? I can't say that either. To say it was all Johnson's fault, I definitely can't say that either as well. But Jimmie Johnson's reaction to this has been stronger than his reaction to really any other altercation I can think of in recent years, and I think it's mainly because of just the pressure. He's reached a boiling point. I don't blame him. I can't say it's entirely his fault. If I was used to, succeeding at the top level for years and years and years, and all of a sudden I wasn't anymore, that would be tough to handle. That'd be tough to deal with. So I don't blame him slightly overreacting to this scenario. I just am surprised by it a little bit, because that's not the Jimmie Johnson I've grown up watching race for a decade and a half. That's not the Jimmie Johnson I know. But I think it's the result of all these extra pressures that he hasn't had to face before kind of hitting him all here at once. So it'll be interesting to see if this whole deal, if this whole rivalry, if this whole feud goes on, if it kind of fizzles out now finally, or if we're going to actually see some sort of retaliation or some sort of hard racing incident between the two. That remains to be seen. We still have 4 races till the playoffs. We got some short tracks like Bristol coming up. Could be the perfect place for some contact, but we'll have to wait and see. 2 guys that are usually pretty level-headed, Jimmie Johnson and Ryan Blaney. Surprising to see them kind of on the front page now as the new big rivalry in NASCAR. But hey, it's fun to talk about, let me say that. But anyway, guys, let me know down in the comments if you agree with what I'm saying, if you disagree. Whose side are you on in this incident? Who do you think crossed the line? Who do you think didn't cross the line? Do you think it was just a racing deal? Do you think it's just 2 guys going for the same position, results in a wreck, they both see it differently? How do you guys feel about this incident? I look forward to reading your comments. Thank you all for watching. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram for all this great stuff. Continue the conversation over there. Big thank you again to my Patreon supporters. Michael Harrison, at G was the Stars, Mentally Defective, Cameron James, John Koblenz, Jason R. Long, Wesley Donaldson, Isaac Dennison, Mika Suzuki, iFantasyRace.com, TheRacingInsiders.com, Matthew Koulopoulos, Pepe Luscious, Jeremy Conklin, Emilio Garcia, Joey DiMicino, Sky Racing Forums, Bryce Schumacher, and the rest of these incredible supporters. I couldn't do this without you guys. I'm doing some traveling here in the next week or so. I'm going to be going to the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Going to do a video there, hopefully. Going to be at Bristol this weekend, and I'm really excited for that, and I couldn't do this without the support I get from you guys on Patreon, so thank you all so very much. With me traveling, videos might look a little different over the next few days. I do have an interview with Landon Castle. That'll be uploaded on Tuesday. It's very exciting, so I can't wait to show you guys that. But yeah, some of the next few episodes might look a little different, but it's still going to be the same old Out of the Groove. We're going to talk about Michigan. We're going to talk about Bristol coming up, all that great stuff. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you all again very, very soon. Love all of you. Thank you for watching, everybody. See you very soon.